Hey y'all, Marty Smith here for Academy Sports and Outdoors Traditions. As you know, it's been an unprecedented, unpredictable year. It's been difficult on us all for different reasons. And like many of you guys, we've taken refuge on the water.
It's a fish, baby!
We'll take you canoeing, kayaking, even oyster farming. And we'll tell you how those activities impact the communities and the culture built within them. Come join us on the water. This is Traditions.
Charleston, South Carolina is a destination brimming with history. We made our way to the Palmetto State to learn the nuances of one of its newest industries, oyster farming. I met up with Tom Bierce, one of the first individuals to devote his entire life to the trade in Charleston. For Academy Sports and Outdoors, I'm Marty Smith, and this is Traditions.
Hey, boy. Hey.
How we doing?
Doing well. How about yourself? Good to see you, too.
All right, we're down here in Charleston, South Carolina at the Charleston Oyster Farm. This is my guy, Tom. He owns the place. If ever there were an expert who uses words I've never heard before about such things, this is the guy. What are you going to show me today, man?
Well, we're going to go out in the Stono River and see some wild oysters. And I'm going to show you some farm-raised oysters. And we're going to show you the difference between wild oysters and farm-raised and how the farm-raised oysters can help the sustainability of the wild, so they're kind of feeding off of each other. We'll get into all that when we get out there. We're gonna learn a lot.
I'm excited. I want to learn the differences between wild and farm raised and where each one go and why and all those things. And I can't wait for you to show me, man.
Let's do it,
man. Let's get in old Bessie and go for a run.
Let's do it.
How exactly does this work?
This is a culture lease. We've leased the acreage from the state. It's based on the acreage that you have. Currently, you got to do so much planting. And this is a green shell relay. You can see all it takes is one oyster in the mud for all these other oysters to grow on. That's one oyster at the bottom. It had just a little bit sticking up out of the mud, and then all these oysters grew on top of it.
How many is that total?
I don't know, a lot. What we would do for planting, we take some of this green shell, living shell, and we're gonna just chuck it over where there aren't any oysters. So you feel there's a mud spot right here, so I'm just gonna put that cluster right down there. And I feel there's anywhere there's oysters, you put them where there aren't oysters. And you're just kind of expanding that footprint as you go. But you get the idea.
I do get the idea.
Taking one reef and hopefully doubling the size of it.
So I have my gloves. What's a hammer for?
So we're not harvesting right now, but if we were, the hammer is for culling the oysters. Culling it in place is one of the requirements for harvesting.
What is culling?
Culling is you take the dead shell. See this root? It doesn't have an oyster, a top shell. You want to take anything you're not going to harvest that isn't 3 inches. You're going to break it off. These are kind of small oysters, but actually that's a 3-inch oyster. That's a 3-inch oyster, but there's no dead shell on it, so that would be something we could just throw in. It has to have at least one 3-inch oyster on it, and anything that's smaller or dead, you're supposed to break off.
Wow.
And that is going to leave more substrate for
later.
Like, see this root here? Just hit it, and it comes right off, and you just leave them shell. You only take what you're going to be harvesting.
So I would knock that off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
And I throw this whole thing in there.
Yeah, let's see. There's a nice harvest ready oyster on there. You can even get in here and break them apart. There's a couple more inside.
What are you looking for when you're just the 3 inches or larger?
Yeah, 3 inches or larger. You can see light coming through my finger in the back. That's the live growing edge. And what we do when we're cultivating our singles is we want to break that off. And they respond to that stress by growing more of instead of being really long, it makes them grow a little bit shorter, rounder, deeper cups, thicker shell.
So if I'm at fancy restaurant X and I get the seafood tower appetizer and there's oysters in it, Are they typically farm raised?
Typically, yeah. Steamed oysters, more for like parties and, you know, big gatherings. It's a good tradition to have football season. It's the best, you know. Nothing brings people together like a bushel of oysters.
As you can see, Tom is an encyclopedia of all things oysters. I had no idea the magnitude of knowledge one must have to be an oyster farmer.
How's that for athleticism? Speaking of spawning, what spawned your passion for marine life and studying this and then making it your life?
My first time to South Carolina was through the Charleston jetties, and ended up coming to school down here for marine science and started the first oyster farm in Charleston, third in the state. I love being out on the water, and I see a need for it.
What's that need?
We need more natural oysters, and we need to satiate the demand with aquaculture oysters, and that will take the pressure off the wild oysters. It's a population issue. There's more people, there's more oysters being eaten, and less oysters being spawned. In the early 1900s, I think South Carolina had 600,000 bushels annually, and ever since the 90s, I think it's been under 100,000 bushels harvested annually. But South Carolina is still one of the only areas in the world where the wild oyster landings are more than the farm raised, and it's actually by a lot. We have a opportunity here to stay ahead of the curve and continue having the tradition of harvesting wild oysters in South Carolina, but we have to meet the demand in other ways and restore this resource.
Now that I've pulled, hammered, replaced, and above all learned about wild oysters, Tom's going to show me how he cultivates the farm-raised variety. To say I'm intrigued by all this would be an understatement.
Now we're gonna get the mud off of these things, because keeps them a little cleaner, helps them, and also we're gonna shake them a little bit. When you pull them up and clean them, you're also kind of chipping them and getting that shape that you want.
So are you physically pulling them out and doing it individually, or you're shake,
just kind of shaking them, yeah. Anytime you handle them, you try to give them a little stress, you know, to kind of create that shape that you want. All right, let's walk it forward a little bit. Yeah, I'll let you want to do it, Mark?
Sure.
Yeah, we're just gonna walk until that clip is kind of right in line with this this cage here. I'll put this thing off to the side. All right, if you want to clean it back off.
Oh, okay.
You good? I'll let you work the davit. I'm gonna get this thing hooked up for you. Wrap it around from the bottom, do like 2 wraps. All right, and then you kind of hold a little bit of pressure on it.
Okay.
And then you turn this switch, and then kind of walk hand over hand.
And you do this how often?
We gotta do this once a week in the summertime.
Once a week. So this is the moment that you work for, right?
Correct.
What is this moment like when you see the fruits of your labor opening up this cage?
I just get hungry.
Good answer. I like it.
What I've got in the water here on this site is the tail end of my 2018 crop.
2018, they've been in there for 2 years?
Yeah, these are 2-year-old oysters.
So how does it end up on our plate? What's like the commercial process of you selling it up the chain?
We're so close to the restaurants that we sell to that we do our harvest same day, and it's in the restaurants in a matter of hours, fresh as it gets.
Wow.
Unless you're out here on the boat, in which case it's a little bit fresher.
So full disclosure, I'm not an oyster guy.
Oh, well,
I'll eat it.
I think you're about ready.
Want it. Suck it on down.
All right, so I just turn it up and swallow it down, right?
Chew it.
You chew it?
Chew them up.
Okay, cheers.
Cheers.
Salty.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
Keep it coming. What else you tasting?
Deliciousness.
All right, that'll do. That'll do.
Man,
What do you
that's pretty
think?
Good, man.
You an oyster guy now?
I think you might have just converted me, bro. You know, Johnny Civilian doesn't think about all of the work and all of the preparation and all of the execution that's involved in that ending up on our plate.
No.
It's completely, it's even beyond a foreign concept. It's a non-existent concept.
Well, we need more oysters, and people need to understand the importance of them and how it all works, because it is actually, it's not just a rock on the side of the river. There's a lot more to it than that.
And then you throw the environmental impact on top of all of that, it's exponentially even more interesting and cool.
Yeah, it's a positive feedback loop. The more oysters you have, the more oysters you have, the more everything else you have.
That's right.
Without the oysters, you don't have fish, crabs, shrimp, nothing. That's the way I look at it.
To see what you guys do every day, not only what you do, but the passion that you have for what you do. We were talking about that earlier. You two are so passionate. I want to be around anybody who's that passionate about what they do. That's who I want in my
You're
life.
welcome anytime.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Okay, y'all, I got carried away there. I was definitely caught up in the moment. I don't know that I'm converted. What I do know is how grateful I am for folks like Tom, who are so passionate about properly harvesting our precious natural resources for our enjoyment and for the betterment of our future.